Okay, for this lab we are testing for macromolecules with food. So basically we're taking a food sample and we're seeing what macromolecules are found inside of it. So first thing I need you to do is in your lab journal, if you have not already, I need you to put this chart in there. What you're doing is you're saying we are testing these 4 macromolecules, so monosaccharides, lipids, polysaccharides, and proteins. And the point of this video is to show you what a positive test for these macromolecules look like and what a negative test looks like. That way when you go to test your food, you're able to see this is positive and this is negative. Now, I want you to fill in this chart as we go through this video. So this chart should be done when you are finished with the video. Okay, so the first test we're going to do is testing for monosaccharides. Remember, monosaccharides are simple sugars. So you're going to see in here that I'm going to test monosaccharides on 2 different things. One of them I know is going to pop positive and the other one I know is going to be negative. And that's what's going to show you what a positive and negative result looks like so you can fill in your chart. Do pay attention to the process of how I do these because you're going to have to do this in the lab tomorrow with your food samples. Okay, the first test I'm going to show you is your Benedict's test, and this is testing for monosaccharides, or simple sugars. So what you need here is that you need 2 test tubes. Okay, there might be some water in them. If there is, just shake it out over the sink. What you do with your test tubes is you want to add your stuff into them first. Okay, so I'm going to take my test tube. I'm going to take my distilled water, because this one should pop negative. We don't want it to have a positive result. And I'm just going to add a little bit into my test tube. And this amount is totally fine. Okay? Really not a ton. So you just need a little bit, so that's my water. Then I'm going to take my Sprite, which should be my positive result, because it has simple sugars in it. So right now I have my Sprite in one, I have my water in the other. You do need to remember what's in what when you're handling your test tubes. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to add my indicator. So my indicator for this one is Benedict's. So I'm going to take my Benedict's, and this is in your test tube, and they're labeled so you know what they are. And we're going to add 3 drops to both of them. So right now, you have kind of a blue tinted liquid. But here's the thing with Benedict's, is Benedict's doesn't work without heat. So I'm going to grab some test tube holders, and I'm going to stick them in my test tubes, right like this. Now, because I have to hold a iPad at the same time, I'm going to hold both of them, and I'm going to come over here to my hot water bath. So we will have hot water baths set up in the front of the room. And we take these and we set them in the hot water bath. And we hold them here. Okay, so my test results are done for my Benedict's. If I take them out of the heat, you can see here, we have orange and then we have your regular blue. Okay, so the one on the left, the orange, that is our positive control, that's my Sprite. So if you have an orange or even a green color, that tests positive for monosaccharides. If it just stays that blue of the Benedict's solution, then it is a negative test. The only thing that I didn't show you on the video is cleanup. For cleanup wise, all you do is dump the liquids out of the test tube, and then there's test tube brushes over by the sink, so clean them out with the test tube brush. Make sure you get all that residual orange out, and then you can put your test tubes back in your rack to share with the next group. Okay, so this test is a really super easy test. This is our lipid test. It's called the brown paper test. So the first thing you do is you get a thing of paper towels and you write your group member's name on it, because you will be leaving it overnight. And you write your hour on it. So grab a Sharpie, grab a paper towel, and get that ready to go. Then what we're going to do is we're just going to put a drop of our food sample on the paper towel. So I'm going to go to my distilled water. Remember, that's my negative control. So this should show negative. And I just want to put 1 drop right there. And then I'm going to take my positive control. This is oil. So it should pop positive for lipids. And I'm going to put it right there. Okay, you just want a single drop. Now, you need to remember what these are. So this is water, and this is oil. You're going to have to label them. So what we do now is we just set it to the side. So you're going to stick it on the back countertop, and this is one where we have to let it sit overnight and look at it the next day. So you have to do this one on Tuesday so you can observe the results on Wednesday. So the result you're looking for is a grease stain. Think about if you get fast food, especially Sonic bags because they're the dark brown bags. That grease stain is what you're going to see as a positive result. So positive is a grease stain, negative is no grease stain. So our testing for polysaccharides, our complex sugars, and our lipids actually go in the same test wells, just to make our life easier. So this right here is called a well plate. I will have well plates on the front desk, and then you get white paper underneath so you can see. So what we do with this is we have to put our food samples in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my negative controls, and I'm going to put it into the well, and you just want to cover the bottom of it, so just a few drops, right like that. So those are my negatives. Then my my biuret or my protein test comes next. I'm going to grab some milk because it should test positive for proteins. And I'm going to do the same thing that I just did. Now, for you to keep track, it might help you that this is where I'm testing for protein and this is where I'm testing for polysaccharides. So I have it in here. I have my negative control for protein. I have my positive control for protein. Then I have my negative control for polysaccharides and my positive control for polysaccharides. Okay, so on this one, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add my indicator. So I'm going to take for my protein test, I'm going to take my biuret, which is just in this test tube. I'm going to add 3 drops of biuret to my protein. Let's do 5. And then for my polysaccharides, our indicator is iodine. So we're going to take our iodine and add 2 drops. Okay, with these ones, it's good to stir them. So if you take a toothpick, now you don't want to mix them, so you're going to use either end of the toothpicks. So you're just going to stir them. Get them nice and mixed. Okay, our biuret or your protein test is actually one of the hardest to tell, so I'm going to zoom in here. So if you look, a negative result just stays that blue color of the biuret, but a positive on the right-hand side is that purple. So proteins, if it has proteins in it, it will turn purple. Then for your polysaccharides don't even really need stirred. They're pretty good. So I'm going to mix it right here, and mix it here. Again, don't contaminate. Zoom in, and a negative test just stays that brown of the iodine, and a positive test turns black, or if you spread it out, it's a really dark purple. Okay, that is a positive and negative for proteins and polysaccharides. When you're done, you just take your well plate over to the sink, wash them out really good, use a test tube brush if you have to clean out those little wells, and then you're good to go. Okay, so this is what you should have gotten on your chart throughout this video. So for monosaccharides, a positive test for monosaccharides is if it turns orange. Sometimes it will turn green, so keep that in mind. Negative test just stays the same blue as the indicator, so that means that there would be no monosaccharides in that food. For the lipid test, you got to look for that grease stain versus no grease stain. If it has the grease stain on Wednesday when you come back and look at it, you can be able to tell. Sometimes just dried on food can look like a grease stain. So if you have a question about it, let me know and I can point out what a positive versus a negative is. For our polysaccharides, if it turns black, that would be a positive. If it stays that light brown of the iodine, that is a negative. And for the proteins, if it turns that purple color, and you're going to have to look closely, it would be a positive. Or if it just stays the same blue as the indicator, then that would be a negative result. Okay, so when you guys are testing for food tomorrow, the first thing you have to do is you have to decide what food to test. There is a list of the food that will be up there on the assignment link. You have to do distilled water, so those should all come out negative like mine did, and you have to do anastomach contents. But then out of all the other options, you get to choose 3 of the foods. So there's like 10 or 12 different options. You only choose 3 of them. And you can wait until tomorrow with your partner and you can say which foods you want to test. But I do need you to draw this chart in your lab journal. It is very similar to the one you just filled in. You have your different tests, so monosaccharides, lipids, polysaccharides, and proteins. And then across the top you have what we're testing. So everybody does water, everybody does stomach contents, and then these are your 3 optional foods that you get to choose. So if you want to leave those blank for right now, that's okay. So when you do this, I showed you 2 tests. I showed you a positive and I showed you a negative. What you're going to do, like for monosaccharides, is you will test water, the stomach contents, maybe crackers, peanuts, and oatmeal. Okay, those would be your 3. So you're going to test all 5 of those for the monosaccharide test. So you'll put a little bit of water in a test tube, you'll get another test tube, put some stomach contents in there, get another test tube, put some crackers in there, and keep going until you have all 5 done. So you should have a positive or a negative in each of these boxes. Then you're going to do your lipid test. So on your paper towel, you will put 5 drops. One of them will be water, one will be the stomach contents, and the other 3 will be your optional food. Then you're going to test polysaccharides and proteins for all 5. So at the end, what you should be able to do, let's say for monosaccharides, your water comes out negative, stomach contents comes out positive, positive, negative, negative, just for the sake of it. We would say, based on these results, that the stomach contents in food number 1 contain monosaccharides, but water, food 2, and food 3 did not contain monosaccharides. So they did not have simple sugars in it. So what if once your whole chart's filled in, we could also say, like let's say your first food didn't have lipids, didn't have that, and did have this. So let's say you got those results. Remember, these are all hypothetical. I'm making them up off the top of my head. If this food number 1, we said it has monosaccharides and it has proteins, but it does not contain lipids or polysaccharides. So that's what you could use. That's how you would describe your results. So that's your test, and I hope you're ready for your lab tomorrow.